During my years in the military, I spent a decent amount of time on the water, right? Small boats, out to sea, that sort of thing. I didn't spend a lot of time on big ships, but a pretty good amount of time on smaller craft. And so, as a result, one of my favorite books, and then was made into a movie, is The Perfect Storm by Sebastian Junger. Junger, who went on to do some amazing coverage as a war correspondent and has become pretty close to the special operations community. Prior to that, he wrote this incredible book about longshoremen up in New England. Perfect Storm recounts a real-life incident where some longshoremen were lost at sea. And there's this pivotal moment in the narrative where the core idea to the story is there's a boat out fishing, and they're caught in what was this 30-year storm, this perfect gathering of multiple different weather fronts. The captain makes this decision in the moment and informs his crew that they have no choice at this point. They were notified too late that all the weather patterns weren't clear until it was too late for them to turn around. They couldn't escape the storm. And while it was still relatively safe and clear, they actually had to go into the most dangerous part of the storm. As someone who spent a little bit of time in the ocean, the reality and intensity of that moment has always stuck with me. But I can't help but seeing the analog to what's going on in the world today. We're on the backside of the pandemic. At least it looks like we're starting to come through that to some sort of normalization, but we're feeling knock-on economic ripples combined with this perfect storm of the disruption in Europe and what's going on in Ukraine, from the just sheer humanitarian crisis to the sort of downstream economic impacts that are going to be with us for a while, combined with the follow-on economic impacts from the last several years with the pandemic. So it's just sort of this perfect gathering and growing storm with no immediate end in sight. This is going to go on for some length of time, could be years, as we work our way through this. And so the question there for leaders is, how do I communicate with my organization when I know I'm heading into this perfect storm of unpredictability, right? Oftentimes, the simple answer would be, if I see a storm gathering, I'm gonna figure out a way to go around it, or I'm gonna revert and we'll come back later. What if, like in the movie and the book, Perfect Storm, that's just unavoidable, and you have to go through this. In the special operations world and folks that have studied high performance small team work at a deep level, another way this is referred to is as the event horizon, which is a physics term, I think, for like the point at which light can no longer escape a black hole, right? It's a very technical term, but it's used in small team world to say there are points in high risk small team environment where you just can't turn around. So the SEAL teams would use this to say there's a certain point when a team is executing toward a mission that turning around is no longer an option, right? The risk of going back is too great. Firefighters, the folks that study firefighting teams, use this. There's a point at which you just have to fight your way through the fire. So that term, I think, is another way of capturing, as a leader, sometimes you will be caught in the perfect storm and you just have to move through it. If this is your only option, what are you doing as a leader to prepare for it? And in some ways, I feel like that's where we are collectively around the world right now. And there's no perfect answer there, but I do think some of the core fundamentals are sort of tried and true inside the team of teams model that we believe in deeply at McChrystal Group. Number one being your culture and your people. You can combine those into one thing. You can see them as two distinct things, but I will always, in times of uncertainty, first re-level set against who are we as an organization and how are our people doing. Because when you get into this space over here, that's what's really going to get you through it, or not. There's no perfect plan that you can put in place because you don't know what you're going to encounter when you get here. But if you have a culture that's ready to adapt and people that are ready to work with each other as a high performance team because they have deep levels of trust and understanding, then you're significantly increasing your odds of coming through the other side of the perfect storm. And supporting of that, in my view, the core sort of top two basic blocking and tackling things you want to have in place is, are we communicating with honesty and transparency about what we're heading into? Are we the captain on the deck saying, okay, crew, here's the deal, we've got to go through this storm, and there's just no other way to go about it. I'm going to share with you what I know, what I'm seeing, what I think we're likely to run into, and I'll adjust my strategic perspective as soon as I know more, as we understand the realities here. And I'm not going to pull the wool over your eyes and say I understand all of the unknowns that we're going to hit when we go into this space. So creating that constant communication flow and allowing transparent exchange back and forth, I think, is critical. feeds that idea, so the org health term might be psychological safety, so that you can have this honest exchange of insight and information and questioning around the organization. And then that can lead to the overall alignment of the organization. I'd argue this is critical at any time. Are we strategically aligned to how we're executing in the field, in the market, whatever the case may be? And are we revisiting this conversation when there's uncertainty? Obviously, which is supported by regular and accurately timed communication structures. But all of those can be meaningless if I don't have a culture and people that trust and understand one another and actually want to work as a team. So I would say, where we are collectively around the globe right now, perhaps heading into some sort of perfect storm, maybe we're already at the front edge of it. Do we have the ability to triangulate against these three key areas? Are we focused on our culture and people? Are we communicating in the right forms and the right regularity to create that sense of exchange between the team? And are we aligned on what we are trying to do now and what we might encounter in the near future or mid-future?